In today's era of streaming services prominence, there's an intense competition to enlist any relatively famous actors or actresses. The landscape is flooded with numerous TV series and movies, compelling streaming services to offer exorbitant salaries to lure celebrities into their projects. Consequently, the label of the highest paid star has lost much of its uniqueness. Almost every month, a new film premieres on platforms like Netflix, featuring some celebrity who commands a hefty fee of $25 million or $30 million. While these films might fade from memory within a week, the fortunate actors and actresses who seize these opportunities are likely far from dismayed. Quite the opposite. In the earlier days, things were a bit different, with the highest fees going to stars who could draw crowds to cinemas. Each release featuring these stars was a major event. Will Smith was one of such actors. He was hailed as the king of the box office, even earning the unofficial title of Mr. Blockbuster. Virtually every film he starred in quickly ascended to the top, and his ears were worth millions of dollars. Even films like Ali, considered by some as mediocre, were seen as experiments by a talented actor and not as a failure. But these times of universal love and appreciation are over, and not least due to his own fault. First, Smith sought to propel his son to stardom, so much so that he seemingly forgot about his own career. Later, he almost completely derailed himself by slapping Chris Rock at the Academy Awards.
Oh, wow! Wow!
But there's still hope for a redemption. According to Will Smith's autobiography, he always possessed immense talent. In the beginning, he carefully concealed it, concerned about underwhelming people. However, the aspiring actor put in considerable effort to hone his skills, eventually overcoming his fears to present his talent to the world. He initially sought to conquer the world as a music artist, and he did achieve some success, winning a Grammy and earning several millions of dollars. Unfortunately, he quickly squandered his earnings while neglecting his tax obligations.
I had spent most of my money, like all of it. I spent all my money. I didn't forget, but I didn't pay the IRS. The IRS took all that stuff, so I was like broke. Being famous and broke is a shitty combination, because you're still famous and people recognize you, but they recognize you while you sitting next to them on the bus.
This financial predicament is believed to lead him to accepting a role in the TV series The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. In the late 1980s, singing and dancing weren't highly lucrative, and mounting tax debts made his situation more pressing. He swiftly embraced NBC's offer for the series, and almost the entire earnings from 4 seasons went towards clearing his tax debts. The show, which aired from 1990 to 1996, was immensely popular in the mid-season and significantly elevated Will Smith's status as a celebrity with each season. However, it wasn't always smooth sailing. Some criticisms began to circulate, with reports from people around him suggesting that he often failed to memorize his lines, causing disruptions during shoots. Additionally, Janet Hubert, who departed the series after the 3rd season, claimed that she was fired after criticizing Smith's arrogance and mistreatment of fellow actors. Smith denied some of the accusations and never commented on Hubert's statements. As the 3rd season of the TV series progressed, Smith sought opportunities beyond television. He ventured into movies world with projects like Made in America and 6 Degrees of Separation. Made in America performed well at the box office, with Smith capturing the attention of Hollywood studios. In 1995, he secured his inaugural significant role in the action film Bad Boys. Initially, the movie was slated to bear the title Bulletproof Hearts. Upon completion of the script, the 2 lead roles were earmarked for Wesley Snipes and Eddie Murphy. However, Eddie Murphy's colossal stardom made him an expensive choice, with a $15 million fee deemed unaffordable. Consequently, the producers sought an alternative actor for the lead, someone who commanded a more reasonable fee yet possessed strong appeal for the movie poster. At that juncture, Will Smith was not initially under consideration. They explored inviting Arsenio Hall, but he doubted the film's potential for success and declined the offer. In a subsequent interview, Hall regretted this as the biggest mistake of his career. Lawrence Fishburne also rejected the role, but he is known for turning down projects that later became hits. While Fishburne aided Samuel Jackson's career, he also monitored Will Smith's progress, occasionally presenting him promising opportunities. Given Will Smith's already existing celebrity status, albeit predominantly as a TV star, he agreed to work for a modest $2 million. The actor harbored suspicions due to the rejections before him, refusing to work for meager compensation as Martin Lawrence and director Michael Bay did, who even invested his own resources into the film. Smith's status allowed him to decline numerous offers from producers and directors. Additionally, he resisted pressures to expose his physique, agreeing only to unbutton his shirt.
I love you, man. Fuck you, Marcus.
He was able to confess his love to Lawrence only at the end of filming.
I love you too, man. On me looking at me, I said, yeah, I love you. I said that shit.
You my boy, man.
Nah, you like my brother, man.
In contemporary times, Will Smith's comments about a specific minority would likely have led to his cancellation. However, back then, he confidently expressed to Michael Bay that, in line with his more traditional values, he'd better punch Lawrence in the ear than openly say,
I love you,
to the man. Relations between the actors were not particularly amicable on set, with Martin Lawrence often the target of Smith's jests. Occasionally, Smith's jokes crossed boundaries, prompting Lawrence to seek recourse with Michael Bay. Although Bay couldn't restrain Smith, he reassured Lawrence that he was free to reciprocate and offend Smith at his discretion, promising to intervene if necessary. Lawrence clarified that he was not generally mean-spirited and seldom used harsh language, but could make an exception for Smith. Bad Boys, which cost $19 million to produce, defied expectations upon its release in April 1995, grossing an impressive total of $141 million. This propelled Will Smith into stardom as a rising star, ultimately prompting the discontinuation of the show The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air due to his refusal to continue acting in it. In fact, the show's ratings already started to gradually decline, so even if Smith had continued to perform, it's probable that the show would have been canceled after 1 or 2 seasons anyway. For his next film project, Smith secured a much more solid $5 million payout. He got his role in the Independence Day without an audition. Director Roland Emmerich revealed that he envisioned Will Smith being part of the film even during the scriptwriting process. Notably, this desire was not influenced by Smith's involvement in Bad Boys, but rather by his performance in the film 6 Degrees of Separation. However, the success of Bad Boys significantly contributed to Smith securing the lead role. Emmerich noted that there was skepticism about this decision within the studio. Despite having a contractual clause regarding casting influence, the director still had to push the idea of getting Smith for the role, since many studio officials initially opposed it. Roland Emmerich even detected a sense of racism in the atmosphere.
And what the hell is that smell?
But the triumph of Bad Boys dispelled any doubts, causing the critics to back off. Smith is acknowledged for his numerous instances of improvisation in the film. It was though he came up with the idea of adding the cries and yells during the scene with the alien he was dragging across the desert. There was actually an unpleasant smell, prompting Smith to vent his frustration towards nature, and he then suggested channeling this frustration towards aliens, an idea that intrigued Emmerich.
And what the hell is that smell? I could have been at a barbecue!
In his book, Smith described the filming of this movie in rather unflattering terms. Many of the locations for filming were subjected to intense heat, and the actor endured constant sun-induced discomfort. During one particular scene, things went awry, resulting in Smith catching an unintended fire. Looking back, it all appears amusing, but at the moment when the actor noticed the flames running over his body, his only thoughts were that the world might lose such a talented actor. Another noteworthy aspect of this film involves the role of Smith's girlfriend, which was originally set to be played by Jada Pinkett Smith, who, during those years, actually hadn't adopted the Smith surname yet. She had already secured the role, but had to relinquish it due to a scheduling conflict, namely the shifted shooting schedule of The Nutty Professor. What's even more intriguing is that she missed out on one of the lead female roles in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air series. However, Will emphasizes that he always noticed the remarkable actress and found certain features of her body quite fascinating. Independence Day was released in July of '96 and emerged as the highest-grossing film of that year, raking in $817 million against a $75 million budget. Will Smith swiftly transitioned from being a budding star to one of Hollywood's main celebrities. He was already cast in Men in Black even before Independence Day hit the screens, securing another $5 million payout for this role. Here, unlike Emmerich's film, the planets seemed to align in Smith's favor. Chris O'Donnell turned down the leading role, later expressing regret and frustration regarding both his decision and the Batman and Robin movie. But Smith also had to decline a great offer. Will had harbored an interest in taking the lead role in the movie Spawn for a long time. He liked the script, but ultimately opted for Men in Black. According to some tale, Jada Pinkett Smith, not yet the actor's wife, but already his close friend, suggested him to consider the role more closely. Smith took the advice and achieved yet another substantial box office success. The film, made on a budget of $90 million, grossed $589 million at the box office. There came a phase when every morning for Smith started with rejecting various projects. At times, these offers were quite peculiar. For instance, he was offered a role in Lethal Weapon 4, a part that eventually went to nasty Chris Rock. Smith turned it down right away. He could have also been a part of Brian De Palma's movie, Snake Eyes, but that might have resulted in an excessive number of talented actors, with an expectation for him to oppose Nicolas Cage instead of taking his place. As per Smith, he didn't want to portray a supervillain. Another account suggests he demanded so much money that the studio couldn't accommodate the request. Consequently, Smith opted for Enemy of the State, directed by Tony Scott, for which he received $14 million. The movie might have evolved in a totally different way than what we saw after its release. Gene Hackman repeatedly declined his role. Moreover, if Stanley Kubrick hadn't been engrossed in filming Eyes Wide Shut for a year and a half, even Tom Cruise might have taken a part in the shooting. Smith asserts that he agreed due to the presence of Tony Scott and Jim Hackman. When Hackman got wind of this, he decided to join the project. During this period, there was a belief that everything Smith touched turned to gold, particularly when it comes to the box office. Enemy of the State was not a failure, grossing $251 million with a budget of $90 million. Considering its mature rating, this kind of box office performance was quite acceptable. However, it didn't meet the high expectations for Will Smith involvement.
Bro, you are one sick man.
This period was also when Will famously declined the role in The Matrix, which was intended to have a mature age rating as well. Smith often faces questions about this rejection, and he usually admits it was an odd and unreasonable decision. However, he firmly states that Keanu Reeves was the ideal choice for that role. It seems like, instead of pointing fingers and ridiculing Will, we should express gratitude to him. In place of The Matrix, Smith chose to star in Wild Wild West, even agreeing to reduce his payout demands to $7 million. Plus, it was a teenage-rated film directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, the director of Men in Black. This movie had a long journey before it got to the big screen. In the early 1990s, director Richard Donner spearheaded the film's development, with Mel Gibson slated for the main role. However, both departed from the project in 1993 to make Maverick. Subsequently, Tom Cruise expressed interest in the lead role, but in 1995, he too withdrew to work on Mission Impossible. In 1997, Barry Sonnenfeld became intrigued by the project. Having done some script revisions and alterations, he extended an invitation to Will Smith to join the film, to which Smith readily agreed, given his recollection of the success of Men in Black. Numerous tales and legends are associated with the film. Some revolve around the original script, which went through multiple transformations during production. The changes occurred from the initial script to filming, further revisions during post-production, and finally alterations on the editing table, resulting in a markedly different narrative. The reasons for these alterations are often linked to Smith, the director, or the studio and producers, who infused their own elements into the film. Interestingly enough, the inclusion of a giant spider in the film stemmed from the desire to have it in Superman, a project that was concurrently shelved. One of the producers held such a strong inclination for the spider that it led to its appearance in Wild Wild West. Originally, the film had a smaller budget, prompting Smith to reduce his fee. However, the initial test screenings received a negative response from viewers who struggled to categorize the film as either a comedy or a fantasy. Consequently, the studio initiated extensive reshoots, primarily aiming to infuse comedic sequences into Wild Wild West, ensuring clarity regarding the film's genre. Rumor has it that Warner Brothers wrote off the film as early as during the post-production phase. It even was referred to as the Black Sheep at various meetings. Knowing this, no one from the studio's quality department was eager to be involved with the film. Everyone foresaw that their reputation would be linked to a major box office disappointment. Hence, the entire team worked on the project under significant pressure. Will Smith mentioned in one of his interviews that he was aware of the film's quality, so he accepted the impending failure. To his astonishment, the film managed to amass nearly $50 million in its opening weekend. Although the $170 million film ultimately grossed $222 million, it marked Will Smith's first box office letdown. He also received his first Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Screen and Duet with Kevin Kline. According to Smith, this failure compelled him to reevaluate his career and led to a strive to demonstrate his exceptional talent to the public. Subsequently, he took on roles in The Legend of Bagger Vance and the Ali biopic. Examined from an outsider's perspective, these choices were not arbitrary. The Legend of Bagger Vance was directed by Robert Redford, a reputable director known for the successful film The Horse Whisperer. Initially, Redford intended to act in the film himself, alongside Morgan Freeman, but eventually opted to cast younger actors. On the other hand, Ali was helmed by Michael Mann, whose films consistently received praise from both audiences and critics. Additionally, portraying the most renowned boxer in history was a significant undertaking.
The champ is here! The champ is here!
For Ali, Smith received a $20 million payout. Despite this, both films struggled at the box office. Ali garnered $87 million with a $107 million budget, and The Legend of Bagger Vance only grossed $39 million with an $80 million budget. Will Smith's decision to return to Men in Black was influenced by these prior failures, despite his reservations about the script's quality. While the budget for Men in Black 2 considerably exceeded that of the first installment, and the box office performance dipped slightly, the project ultimately achieved success. The $140 million film managed to collect $442 million. Subsequently, apprehensive of a string of failures, Smith temporarily set aside endeavors to appease critics and reverted to blockbuster production. However, after Men in Black 2, he faced another setback with Bad Boys 2, yet another film with an adult rating. Despite its $273 million gross on a $130 million budget, it was not a resounding success.
You all right?
No, I'm not all right, Mike. My ass still hurts from what you did to it the other night.
Oh, my Lord.
Hey, it got rough. I mean, we got caught up in the moment. Shit got crazy.
When you popped me from behind, I think you damaged some nerves.
Okay.
Nah, I
Can't what?
can't even get an erection.
What's an erection?
Originally, I, Robot wasn't envisioned as a sensational blockbuster.
Can a robot write a symphony? Can a robot turn a canvas into a beautiful masterpiece?
Can you?
It was intended to be a costly sci-fi film, with efforts made to constrain the budget to $100 million. At one point, Denzel Washington was offered the lead role, but he declined due to his dissatisfaction with the script. Subsequently, Smith was cast, and the film's budget was augmented by $30 million. Ultimately, with a budget of $120 million, the film grossed $347 million.
What am I?
Following this, the film Hitch achieved great success. In this project, Smith agreed to work solely based on a percentage, resulting in a relatively modest budget of $70 million. Will Smith personally handpicked the entire cast for the film, a practice he continued in nearly all his subsequent projects.
What the hell was that?
Hitch amassed an impressive $368 million.
Oh! Oh! Whoa!
Buoyed by this success, Will chose to showcase his talent once more, leading to the creation of The Pursuit of Happiness. This project was entirely Smith's creation. He also selected the director Gabriele Muccino for the film. The release of this movie marked the beginning of Jaden Smith's acting career, as his father, Will Smith, recognized incredible potential in him.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me, all right?
All right.
You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it, period.
In The Pursuit of Happiness, the actor again worked for just a share of the film's future box office, this time securing 20%. Among the actor's talented works, this movie stood out as his first major box office triumph, gathering $307 million with a budget of $55 million. Smith's earnings were a somewhat elusive 20% of either a gross or just the net profit, making his total income not entirely transparent. If we consider his earnings based on the entire box office revenue, it amounts to approximately $60 million. However, if we narrow it down to the net profit, this figure reduces to a third of that amount. In the 1990s, the I Am Legend project faced numerous challenges, including issues with Ridley Scott and Arnold Schwarzenegger, causing it to stall. In an attempt to salvage the film, the producers approached Tom Cruise, who declined the offer after reviewing the script, citing its disarray compared to the final on-screen version. Eventually, Will Smith took charge of the project. Interestingly, instead of this film, Smith could have taken part in the comedy I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, initially intended for him and Nicolas Cage. However, due to constant script alterations made by the actors, the project encountered delays, prompting Will Smith and Nicolas Cage to depart. Their roles were later assumed by Adam Sandler and Kevin James. The I Am Legend project demanded considerable effort from Smith, as it was widely known in Hollywood that this was a prolonged and frequently halted endeavor, which was often viewed as risky in the industry. So at the time, Smith approached several Hollywood directors, including even Ridley Scott, but he showed no inclination to cast Smith, favoring Russell Crowe for his films during that time. Guillermo del Toro also declined, stating he didn't want to get involved in such an expensive project. But apparently, it was just an excuse, as Guillermo wanted to direct The Hobbit, and later even made Pacific Rim with a budget of $190 million. However, the unofficial reason for this refusal appeared to be a reluctance to work under the spotlight of a superstar like Will Smith. Del Toro valued creative control and was unwilling to align all his ideas with Smith's preferences. Ultimately, Francis Lawrence agreed to direct, content with Smith's involvement. Lawrence didn't have great success with Constantine and was willing to take the risk. Despite some disruptions caused by Smith's playful antics on set and occasional delays due to personal commitments like attending Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes' wedding mid-filming, the project proved to be a resounding success. With a production budget of $150 million, I Am Legend amassed a whopping $585 million. Later, the alternative ending of the film, where Smith didn't blow himself up, was adopted as the accepted narrative. Currently, efforts are underway to draft a sequel script for the film. During the initial stages of Hancock development at Sony Studios in the early 2000s, the producers envisioned George Clooney for the lead role. However, upon learning that Hancock had ties to a comic book concept, Clooney promptly declined without delving into the script due to his unfavorable experience as Batman. Following Clooney, the role was offered to Ben Affleck, but he declined as well, citing his negative experience with Daredevil and vowing to steer clear of superhero roles, a promise he later famously broke. Matt Damon was also very close to taking the main role in Hancock, but his commitment to the Bourne franchise prevented his involvement. Consequently, Will Smith stepped in to rescue the film. Smith expressed a keen desire for Aishwarya Rai to play the female lead. However, Rai's prior commitments to other projects rendered the studio's efforts to involve her unsuccessful. After that, Smith brought Charlize Theron, with whom he had previously collaborated on The Legend of Bagger Vance, on board for the project.
I can do this all day.
Hancock is a notable example of a film that, despite not initially intended for an adult rating, faced significant challenges during post-production due to content adjustments.
I'll break my foot off in your ass, woman.
The initial cuts of Hancock were notably gloomy, prompting the director and studio to remove certain segments to achieve the desired teen rating. The ratings board insisted on the removal of all aspects in the film portraying Smith's character's issues with the opposite sex.
Asshole.
This topic was frequently humorously addressed in the film, but such changes were deemed beneficial, as many considered these scenes unfunny and somewhat foolish.
So this is where you live.
Yeah.
This is your hideout. Your bat cave.
It's a couple trailers I stuck together.
What's all this?
Jiffy Pop.
What do you do with it?
Pop it.
Ultimately, Hancock garnered $624 million at the box office with a budget of $150 million. At that time, Will Smith stood at the pinnacle of Hollywood as its eminent superstar. He commanded an impressive fee of $20 or $30 million per film, coupled with a significant percentage. In 2008, following his role in the successful film 7 Pounds, Smith temporarily withdrew from the cinema world for several years to support his promising son, Jaden Smith, in his career as an actor. The culmination of his efforts in this direction came in 2010 with the success of The Karate Kid. Despite its modest budget, the movie grossed a remarkable $350 million worldwide, and Jaden Smith secured a fee of $3 million. Encouraged by this triumph, Will Smith embarked on the search for a more adult script that would allow his son's potential to fully shine. This quest led to the film After Earth. However, before that, in 2012, he finally agreed to star in Men in Black 3 after initially turning down the offer for several years. When Sony Studio proposed a percentage of the box office earnings, Smith accepted. His involvement eventually earned him over $110 million. Men in Black 3 achieved a gross of $625 million against a $225 million budget. While this result was commendable, Smith's 20% share from each dollar earned made the film unprofitable for the studio. Consequently, the studio retained only 50 cents from each dollar, nearly half of which went to Smith. This situation ultimately led to the creation of a fourth film in the franchise without Will Smith, as his demands were no longer financially viable for the studio. Smith's earnings for Men in Black 3 are frequently cited as the largest in Hollywood history. Though his earnings are often compared to those of Keanu Reeves, Reeves received $120 million for both Matrix movies, which were contractually considered a single film due to their simultaneous filming. In 2013, Will Smith encountered his first major setback in a long time with the film After Earth. Rumors abounded about the film, including suggestions that M. Night Shyamalan was just sitting and observing how Smith makes the movie, akin to George Cosmatos with Sylvester Stallone. However, these claims were officially denied. While Jaden Smith received considerable praise for The Karate Kid, After Earth presented a different situation. Jaden and Will received 3 Golden Raspberries for this film, which had a budget of $130 million and earned $243 million at the box office. Smith had dedicated 5 years to fostering his son's career. During this period, he only starred in one film, Men in Black 3, where he crossed a particular threshold, similar to Tom Cruise's actions in the Mission Impossible 3. Cruise even could have been canceled at that time, much like the situation Smith faced later. When it became evident that his son's career wasn't progressing as expected and he decided to return, Smith found himself without significant role offers. He even took on a minor role in Winter's Tale to supplement his income. His true comeback was manifested through 2 films, Focus and Concussion. Unfortunately, Concussion struggled to gain traction right from the start, and Focus could have performed better were it not for certain factors. Despite its $158 million box office performance against a $50 million budget, Focus was considered somewhat disappointing. Against these challenges, Smith chose to participate in the film Suicide Squad, which starred an ensemble cast. Although the film wasn't a failure, it faced vehement criticism from general audiences. Consequently, a completely different team spearheaded the sequel, omitting Will Smith from the cast. Despite this, Suicide Squad, with a budget of $175 million, amassed $746 million at the box office. Additionally, the melodrama Collateral Beauty also encountered unfavorable reception. For this role, Smith received another Golden Raspberry nomination. This period saw Smith being one of those big Hollywood stars to line up with the emerging streaming service trend. He was offered $20 million for a Netflix movie called Bright, which he accepted. Bright turned out to be a tremendous success, swiftly paving the way for 3 sequels and 4 spin-offs, although their release is still anticipated. The film's overwhelming success seemed to complicate the financial negotiations, causing delays. However, Smith has not fully transitioned into the streaming realm, a path many actors are currently embracing. In 2019, he made a return to the silver screen with the films Gemini Man and Aladdin. Gemini Man had grand expectations, aiming for a groundbreaking cinematic experience with revolutionary visual effects anchored by Will Smith's digital portrayal. However, the intended revolution turned out to be somewhat cheesy, causing the film to flop at the box office, grossing a mere $173 million against a $138 million budget. On the other hand, Aladdin proved to be Smith's saving grace. The film's production faced a nearly year-long delay as finding suitable actors proved challenging. Officially, Guy Ritchie, the director, is credited with selecting Smith for the role. According to Ritchie, he sought an actor vastly different from Robin Williams, the original Genie voice, to create the totally different character, minimizing comparisons. Smith, initially apprehensive about emulating the drawn character and Robin Williams' portrayal, drew inspiration from his early roles in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air TV series and the film Bad Boys while playing the genie. Aladdin marked Smith's first Disney film, ultimately becoming the highest-grossing film of his career. The film, made on a $183 million budget, garnered an impressive $1,051 million at the box office. Smith received yet another nomination for the Golden Raspberry, although this time for restoring his reputation. This success was seen as a significant step in reversing his prior string of failures. An intriguing episode unfolded in 2020 amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the swift closure of cinemas, Smith's movie, Bad Boys for Life, managed to hit the screens and achieved a remarkable gross of $426 million with a budget of $90 million. Notably, it became the highest-grossing film of that year, given the subsequent postponements of numerous film releases. In 2021, Smith showcased his talent once again by taking on the lead role in the film King Richard, a narrative centered around the Williams sisters and, more specifically, their father, which is why the movie was showered with Oscar nominations even before its release. Despite a lackluster reception at the box office, Smith secured his first Oscar for this portrayal and at the same time nearly ended his career. During the awards ceremony, Will Smith took offense at Chris Rock's jokes targeting his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. Rock made a witty remark about her hairstyle and her aspiration to play G.I. Jane.
G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right?
Provoking a strong reaction from Smith, who unexpectedly rushed onto the stage and slapped Rock in the face.
Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your f***ing mouth!
I'm going to, okay?
Initially appearing like a staged act, the incident soon unfolded as something more significant, hinting at the seriousness of the matter. The repercussions were swift, resulting in cancellations of several projects the actor had been committed to. Additionally, the film Emancipation, where Smith expected great acclaim, was postponed for several months. Online, there was a wave of demands from some individuals to cancel the actor and erase his presence. Despite issuing an apology, Smith chose to lay low and keep his head down, while American critics seemingly felt obligated to heavily criticize him. As Emancipation was eventually released on Apple's streaming service, any expectations of it receiving a bunch of Oscars were dashed. The movie received a barrage of negative reviews. Yet, a year and a half after the incident with the slap, signs emerged of Smith gradually regaining footing in the industry. His first project, the upcoming fourth Bad Boys installment, currently in full-fledged production, suggests a potential return to the limelight. If this film performs well upon release, Smith may regain favor, prompting a collective attempt to overlook past events. The sequel to I Am Legend is also in a state of partial suspension, but a successful run of the new Bad Boys movie may reignite its development. Overall, opinions on Smith may vary, but he was an actor capable of elevating a movie's box office even outside of a particular franchise. That's why he acquired that unofficial title of Mr. Blockbuster back in the day. In this aspect, he is quite comparable to Hollywood stalwarts, like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Jim Carrey, who once made any movie successful just with their presence. Despite the challenges, at 55 years of age, Smith has room for a potential comeback.
That's what I'm talking about.
Feel free to share your sentiments on Will Smith and your anticipation for his upcoming works in the comments.